everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the HR Leaders Podcast, the show where we explore the future of work with industry experts and HR executives from the world's leading global brands. Today, we're joined by Milly Christmann, who's the Vice President of HR for Vistar. Welcome to the show, Milly. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
It's been so long since we last spoke. It's been a while, right? Since we last spoke.
It's been a while.
Yeah, I know. Who would have thought we'd be where we are now?
I know. We had a pandemic in between us. Who could have thought of that?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, how are you?
I am good. There have been some weeks harder than others, but I am good now. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I've slowly gotten used to my new routine, right? Because that was one of the things that happened to all of us, is our routine that we'd all been used to has been thrown out the window. So I think both balancing with the little one now running around at home between my wife and I's calls and podcasts and Zoom calls has been the hardest. She's nearly 2, so she needs kind of full-time attention. As well. So yeah, I think routine was the toughest. Now we've got a good routine. We know we're going for a walk. We're having lunch together at the same time. We've got the naps are back on schedule. So everything's good. Thank you for asking. You never left, right? So for everyone, yes. You're one of the few HR leaders that I even today I completely forgot. When I saw you in the office, I was like, oh, yeah. You're an essential business.
Yes. So this is not my living room. No, this is my conference room, right next to my office. And I did never leave. And it's an interesting duality, because you sort of always want what you don't have. And I thought, I wouldn't mind a break. I wouldn't mind working at home. And what are all these people going on Corona holiday and all these things I'm hearing about? And I haven't had my hair cut in forever. What's happening with all that? But truthfully, being here is, I started thinking about it in the broader scope, and it is pretty meaningful to be part of an essential business, because without the handful of us being here to do what we do, we would really be crippled. And we distribute food, and we're part of a very large industry that helps get food to table. And so I sort of got over my own personal issues pretty quickly, and helped others do the same, and try to look at the bright side. No traffic, pretty easy to get to work. And we were accomplished at things, but things change. Back to your comment about routine, my routine completely changed. I mean, how I got here, when I got here, with whom I spoke, who I saw, all of everything changed. Everything changed. So you kind of have to get a grip on yourself, and then you're able to sort of move forward and think, okay, what's the plan? How do we move as a team and get what we need to do done? And oh, by the way, what is it we need to do? Let's think about that.
Mm-hmm. Talking about, obviously, the title of today's show, How to Lead Through a Crisis, the story you shared with me before the show, I'd love to share that again with everyone, in terms of, although you are an essential business, you were very heavily disrupted. So explain that to everyone, just for the context, because of the industries that you serve. And I love the way that you and the team, re-pivoted the business in order to serve America, people across America, and help deliver food during this time of crisis. Very inspiring.
Yeah. So, this was a first worldwide pandemic for most of us. So it was really, we didn't have a plan. We didn't know what to do. And that's typically what happens when you're involved in crisis management. When we realized that the bottom was sort of falling out of the economy, and we're, just to back up, we are a candy snack and beverage distributor, where our parent company, PFG, is in food service. So our enterprise deals with restaurants for the most part, and Vistar specializes in the following channels. And as I tell you these channels, you'll realize how they caved. And that will tell you what happened to our business subsequently. We handle 90% of the market share of all vending machines across the country. That's offices, school campuses, retailers. We also supply candy, snacks, and beverages to retailers like the Home Depot and Lowe's and Michael's and Bed Bath & Beyond. Some of those your viewers may be familiar with. We supply hospitality, so Hilton, Marriott, all the big hotels that you've ever heard of. we're the ones that fill their shelves with goodies and snacks. Airlines, cruise ships, those are the kinds of channels that we serve. And so they all tanked. And what do you do when your business tanks? Well, you sort of try to get the shocked look off your face at some point and get a grip and think, what can we do? And this is where the pivoting that you mentioned came into play. When this all happened, we got together as an executive team and we realized, look, we are part of supply chain first and foremost, and we have two exceptionally valuable things that are exceedingly relevant at the moment. We have trucks, and they're big, and we have drivers, and they know how to drive the trucks. So what we tried to do is pivot and help our partners in supply chains, groceries, government agencies help getting their product out to a consumer, because what became very clear to us is that there's nothing wrong with the supply per se in this country. There's plenty of food. In fact, you might remember seeing
Food was going off.
Articles, where people were just throwing out bushels and bushels of potatoes and corn and throwing out milk and all kinds of just horribly wasteful things because we couldn't move things. Well, we're movers. So we said, okay, great. This is our cause now. This is our raison d'être. We are going to be taking all of our trucks and helping folks move stuff. And that's what we did. We loaned out trucks, we loaned out drivers, and we had our warehouse people help in that effort. And it really helped us sustain as a business and helped us survive. And the larger meaning, we did have a very visceral connection to this country's supply chain, and that feels pretty good. And let me tell you, in a pandemic, it's nice to have a moment here and there where you can actually feel good and feel like I am doing something toward getting us all out of this bloody hole that we're in right now. Mm-hmm. So pivoting was huge, and we're continuing to do so. It's flattened out a little bit, so as we rebuild, we're able to repurpose our trucks for our own customers, thank goodness.
What an inspiring story. Obviously helped you, help the nation, help people trying to get food, also help the partners, right? Like PepsiCo and others that you mentioned.
Absolutely.
And you acted quickly.
Yes.
I think that was the sign of your leadership as well, to reach out to your partners and make this happen and roll it out so quickly. And also it kept those drivers employed, which I'm sure was a big part of it as well.
Yeah, it was huge. Acting quickly is important, but acting quickly and correctly is vital. We are blessed with an exceptionally talented senior leadership team who really has deep knowledge of this business and this industry, and the courage to say, we're just doing this. We're moving forward, and let's go. And fortunately, the correct calls were made, and it's really saved us. There's a lot of companies that have gone under because of this crisis, and I'm very blessed and fortunate to say that we are not one of them. We're doing very well. We're holding our own and starting that slow rebound right now. And it is slow, but nonetheless, it's a rebound.
What about from yourself personally? Because most of the HR leaders that I've had on the show in the past few days, few weeks, are now leading your return to the workplace. You've never left. So what were some of the immediate changes that you, as a HR leader, that you had to put into play from day one in order to continue business?
So a couple things. First, I had to manage myself. I had to really think through, how do I stop doing the work streams that I, A, enjoyed, and B, thought were so incredibly vital to the organization. I was knee deep in the throes of strategic initiatives. We had initiatives around multiple areas, and we had such a tremendous cadence going. We're in the midst of a lot of change around systems and all kinds of things. And I had to stop and put all that aside. And when you spend the better part of 8 or 9 months building something to where you finally have a strategy that you're ready to shift towards execution, that's really hard just to drop and put on the back burner. And if you can't do it yourself, it's going to be really hard to convince others to do the same thing. and really redeploy the same level of heart and love and energy into the new direction. So I had to really get myself squared away with what's important now, which is a simple question with a bit of a difficult answer. I focused on getting myself important, aligned with what the new crisis management phase was, reprioritized what we needed. And so I think I led with, all right, we need to really understand what's going on and then communicate it to everybody in the company so that folks are aware. Because you learn from engagement surveys and all kinds of things that communication is forever going to be of the utmost importance. So we started with, let's figure out communication. What's a good cadence amongst senior leadership? What's a good cadence amongst downward communication to the balance of the organization? What's the right content? What do we filter? What do we not filter? How transparent can we be? The more the better is the tagline to that end. And what is it gonna look like? And what we learned was frequency is critical. We were having calls every other day with senior leadership, and we got a lot of feedback about how critical it was. And as things eased up, we pulled back the calls to once a week, and folks wanted them more. And then I got the same feedback from the field. They really wanted to continue to know what was going on, even when not much changed from week to week. But turns out they just like to hear the leaders' voices out there. And I thought to myself, well, why is that? And it became clear to me pretty quickly, we're all in this together. And if I hear you, I know we're in this together. And if I even see you and employ the use of technology, it's even that much better. So figuring out what we're doing, we created playbooks. We took a look at how to make our workplace safe. We all became CDC experts and CDC protocol experts. I've never known so much about mask fashion in my entire life as I do now. Really, the first actions we took, how do we make our associates that are here safe? We did have to furlough quite a few, unfortunately, but the folks that stayed with us and that were able to stay with us, we wanted to make sure that they were safe and they felt safe. So that became our major charge in human resources across my corporate team, across my field team. And still to this day, that truthfully is what we do first and foremost. Chris, all of our jobs turned into very tactical jobs. Because in a crisis, that's typically what you need. There's no time for strategic planning and strategy and all of that sort of
executing
sexy HR stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We just have to we have to make it through this thing and make it through well to the other side. That is the charge. That's what's written on the flag. That's a big change in and of itself, because many of us are used to working on more strategic initiatives, and all of a sudden we find ourselves not doing those things. And it's a tough thing to manage, particularly when it's an extended period of time. I mean, we're into it, 3 months now in the thick of it. It gets tough. So I'm relying on that continual communication. My regional directors have their meetings. I make sure to hop on so folks hear us. We're very transparent. We're very real. We talk about the business. We don't just talk about HR initiatives. We talk about sales. We talk about dollars. We talk about the things that I'm hoping provide security to them, in that we're solid. We're not going anywhere. I'm okay. You're okay. We're all going to be okay. Just hang in there.
So many things to take away from what you just said. I think the first thing, which you said even before this call, is putting your own oxygen mask on first.
Right.
I see so many HR leaders that, and including myself actually, not just HR leaders, just leaders in general, that we're not doing that. We're not taking care of ourselves first. Because if we don't do that, we can't take care of everyone else. It's a super important point that you mentioned there. And then secondly, of course, dropping everything that you're doing and completely reassessing where you can add value and where you can help the business and everyone else through it, and communicating as much as possible, but being very transparent. I think the more transparent you are, the better. Even if it's not good news, you still have to be transparent with people, because people want to know where they stand as well. Did you feel added pressure because during these times everyone looks towards HR?
What the funniest thing is, and I'm sure your listeners will relate to this, is if somebody doesn't know clearly whose job it is, it's HR's job.
Yeah, I get that.
It's sort of the hot potato in the room. I've become the vice president of hot potatoes. So
I thought HR was doing that.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. So we've gotten all kinds of things that we're not necessarily equipped for thrown in our laps. It has really been a test of perseverance, I think is huge. And the ability to just try to stay calm through this. And I know everybody always talks about how important it is to keep calm and do whatever it is that you're doing, but it's hard. It's very, very hard, and it has no question been a challenge. But I tell you, the other thing I've really focused on is making sure that our people are laughing a little here and there, taking care of themselves. There's nothing wrong with trying to focus on yourself during this. I've talked with the folks that are my direct reports, and I check in and make sure they're exercising. What are you doing? Why don't you walk instead of take the car? And you really do have to put the oxygen mask on your own self. And the other piece of it, Chris, you've got to let yourself break down too. There was a night, I'll tell you, early on in this mess, when I realized, wow, I am getting paid for ruining people's lives and careers, and I'm getting a paycheck for this. We are going to have to let go a lot of people. And I, over my dinner table with my husband, I actually cried. I had a glass of wine and I had a toast, and which we normally do when we have dinner. And all of a sudden, I don't know what overcome me, but I just, tears were rolling down my face. And my husband's like, "What is going on with you?" And I said, "This is not what I bargained for. I've never in my career, I've had to separate with people before throughout 25 years of doing this, but I've never had to do this kind of workforce actions sort of en masse, and it's just devastating." And I let myself go, and I just let myself have the emotion, and it probably took me a couple of days to sort of get a grip and hold it together. And it bothered me that I broke down at the time. And of course, that was several months ago. And now here I'm broadcasting it to you because I truthfully think it's okay. It's okay to just let go, but then refuel for the team, refuel for the rest.
Mm-hmm. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because I think the day that you don't do that, you probably shouldn't be doing the job.
That sounds like something my boss told me. Yeah, something very similar. Yep.
Yeah, like the day I've no matter how many people I've ever let go, it never gets easier.
No, it's
especially in your situation when it's no fault of their own.
Oh, that's the worst.
That's the worst, right? Is when it's not even in your control, their control. This is what needs to happen for the business to survive, for the benefit of everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You're a human being. You care. You have feelings for this as well. So yeah, like that for me. That was one of the biggest. I haven't said it on the show, but for me, that was my biggest fear for all of this. It wasn't even Chris. It was like, I don't want to let my team down.
Yeah.
I need to find a way to move from being an events company where 80% of our revenues come from events to digital within a few weeks. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to let my team go. And they're like family to me.
Right.
They'd help build this company.
Yeah.
And so that was playing on my mind. It wasn't even anything else. It was like that and making sure I can take care of my family, of course. But it wasn't about Chris. It wasn't even about anything else. It was like, how do I take care of my people? James, Escher, Shane, Ivan. How do I take care of all of them? Because if I can take care of them and me, then that by default, we're going to take care of our customers and everyone else. But we have to take care of ourselves first. That was the thing that was stressing me out, and the anxiety. It wasn't even about coronavirus or anything to do with that. It was just like, they've got families, mortgages, kids to feed.
Absolutely.
Relying on it as well. So yeah, I'm glad you shared that, because there's so many HR leaders out there that this will be the first time that they've ever faced something like this before, and have had to let go of people in this context.
Oh, and I hope this never ever happens again. It was So it was something I definitely don't want to repeat. The one thing I can say is that at least here at Vistar, when we had to do these things, we did it with dignity. You know, my mantra is have dignity as you walk in and have dignity as you walk out, and make sure you create an environment for people to have that. And I had someone come in my office yesterday. Actually, she just popped in. She was one of the folks that we had to lay off, and for her, fortunately, she was in a place where she could retire, and so she showed me a picture of her new home that she bought and all of that. And you know, when you have an associate like that who comes and tells you you make a real difference, it helps you really go on for the next few weeks. It's the energy, it's the refueling that I needed to help me for the next couple of 3 weeks, and hopefully I get some kind of refueling again. But you know, I think one of the things as we think about leading through a crisis, this concept of needing to self-refuel, you know, Chris, we can refuel each other. Just take a moment and appreciate someone else with either how they've made your life easier or just acknowledging what they've done. I think we get caught up in crises activities, but action items that should be on everybody's task list is just to stop for a minute and recognize other folks, because it helps refuel the machine.
Mm-hmm.
And it refuels your own machine too. And I thought about that yesterday after she left my office. She made such a difference to me. It was really, it was very, very touching. And I tell you, I'm on such high emotion throughout all of this. Normally I'm much more under control, but I feel myself just becoming much more emotional.
Right? But it's when you take a second to stop and think is when that happens, right? That didn't happen at work because you're so in the moment. You only have time. You have time to think about how you feel or how this is impacting you. It's during those times at home, at dinner, or when you just have a break with no noise and not going around you. You actually can reflect on that. I had a moment like that yesterday where I literally text Shane, my co-founder, said, "I'm taking a day off tomorrow." So yesterday I was like, I know myself, and I know when I need a break. And so that's why, for everyone listening, there was no live show yesterday. I was like, I just need a break. Like, I need a day of just doing nothing, where I could just spend some time with my wife and Robin, not look at emails, not look at what live stream I'm doing today, not look at anything else. Just because I realized since this whole entire thing happened, I've not had one day off. And I was like, I just need a break. Is that okay? And the team were like, sure, we'll cover whatever you need. You know, it was just getting too much. And I realized how much work I was doing because I looked at my inbox this morning. I'm like, wow, 208 emails. Oh man. Like, I still have, by the way, for all those people that emailed me, I will get back to you, but I'm struggling to keep up for all of this. And things are falling through the cracks as a result of doing that.
But you put your own oxygen mask on. That's exactly what I'm talking about that people have to do. I think it's 100% critical, whether it's taking the day off or whether it is just walking around the block, walking your dog, listening to a podcast, whatever it is. But yeah, it's absolutely critical. It needs to be almost penciled in and calendared in for those who that doesn't come naturally to.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned before when you were setting up some different frameworks. So one of those toolkits, was that how to help your leaders lead through crisis in terms of your managers? Because that's a lot of the, you know, I can only imagine right now being a line manager in a new role, having to lead a team virtually, you know, it's just so tough. So did you do any work with your sort of mid-level managers to help them be better leaders through this?
You know, that's such a great question, because it probably hits them the hardest, because they typically, frontline supervisors have the least amount of experience. And with experience, particularly when you have bad experiences, the learning is huge. But so they don't have those things to lean back on. And you know, as interesting as fate would have it, nothing's ever easy. One of our strategic initiatives was around frontline supervisor training. And we had just figured out this gorgeous platform, and it was going to be regional. And we had dates set and cities set in every region of the nation. And then the pandemic hit. So we got through one set of courses and the pandemic hit. So at this point, what we did was rely on our senior leadership to carry the message down of just stay connected. How about that? Let's just have one goal. Let's just stay really connected, make sure people know what you're thinking, you know what they're thinking, and let's put our money on connectivity. And that's where all those different calls came in. They weren't long, half an hour, but they were regular. And yes, and almost every call that I spoke on, I said, hey, warehouse leaders, if you're walking the floor typically twice a day, walk it 8 times a day. Get out there, connect, make sure you continue to connect. And I kept repeating myself, and I thought, wow, I'm not very interesting. But in a crisis, when you don't have a lot of time to think and it is very reactive, those kinds of overarching, simple reminders from the top, hey, just focus on this one thing, just focus on these 3 things and you'll be fine. And a reminder, that is a methodology of leading that I think has been quite effective.
Yeah. What are the things you think, looking at the way you keep now as we move back to somewhat of a new norm that we're going into? For example, I know one of the things that a lot of the leaders that I keep saying is that they're realizing, like you said earlier, how meaningful those check-ins are. It could be actually the first time that some employees in the company have actually heard from the CEO and seen them at home in their casual clothes with their family, having that real connection and through it, right? The authenticity, the vulnerability as well. Is that something you'd want to, that's an example of one that I keep thinking, I've seen a lot of leaders saying we want to keep that as part of our culture and our communication.
Yeah, and we did have a decent chunk of the workforce be able to work remote. Many of us couldn't because, of course, we're in warehouses and distribution. But we do have a lot of administrative and functional people, finance, marketing, procurement, who could work at home. And so we did have a lot of telecommuting, and we still do. We're still about 50% staffed up back in our corporate office, and our warehouses are almost pretty much fully ramped up. But I think what this has really taught us, and things that need to stay, are the ability to do more than one job. Because when you have 10 people and that 10 people shrinks to 5 people, the tasks don't shrink. And so now those 5 people are doing the job in terms of the scope of the work of 10. And with that comes 2 things. It comes learning curve pain, but it also you also get out of it tremendous power, because you can become so much more versatile and add so much more potential to your own career scope, that you can really have a lot of personal benefits if you remain agile, if you have intellectual curiosity, if you have the right attitude. If you have the right attitude, you can pick up aptitude. And I think that that's critical. And Chris, even, as I recall your background, I think you spent time in sales for the very first part of your career, and look at you now. And I would suggest that a lot of the things that you did in sales have absolute direct benefit to what you're doing at the moment. But life threw you a different way. And one of the other things that I've learned through this crisis is you really see people in a different light. You see talents in people that you never knew existed. You see interests that people have that you never knew. And if you spend more time connecting, you learn those things, and then you can utilize those things, which benefits them clearly, and it benefits you. So it's creating win-wins in the midst of crisis and chaos. And it's there. It's all, I would argue, it's in every company everywhere. The question is, who's going to find it?
And do you have a system and a process set up to tap into it? There's so many organizations now, there's so many skills that exist in, you imagine, right, you've got the CV of that employee, it could be like 10 years out of date. Since then, they've developed so many new skills. You'd have no idea. Ivan, he won't mind me saying, who's my producer. I knew that video editing, videography, content marketing was just a hobby was a passion of his that he had outside of his job. And I approached, said, Ivan, would you be interested in being our head of content to produce the podcast and our live streams? And here he is. The company he worked in, couldn't be further away from his role. They would have had no idea that this was a passion that Ivan had. And now he produces this show every day for you guys. Even one of my sales guys was like, Chris, I'd love to, I've got a passion for writing and I would love to build your programs. Can I move from sales into building the actual content for HR leaders for your events? And now that person's leading our production with Shane. So it's taking the opportunity to have a close enough relationship with your employees where they're willing to share that with you, and also we're willing to invest in it, because I know if someone's passionate about something, I'm going to invest in that.
Yeah, because it'll be done well and it'll be done right.
Exactly. They don't need a degree. I know I never went to school, and I know I remember saying to when I was getting hired at 17, I said, Chris, you don't have a degree, and my reply was, why do I need a degree to sell?
Right.
I was like, I've got a passion to sell and I've got a passion to learn. Give me all of the materials. I'll work for free. And that's what I did for the first few months. And then I got a job after. So I love that point that you made. And many leaders are now having to take on responsibilities and than they did before. So.
Absolutely. And that certainly applies to me. I mean, I'm having to do things I haven't done or thought about probably in 15 years. And it's okay, because I see how it fits into the overall plan. And again, it's that simple plan of doing a couple of things well to get us out, and having the belief that A, there is an out, and B, we're going to get there. And then seeing those incremental gains week by week vis-a-vis sales is it's that lifeline connection to winning. And that is where it is so important to, again, continue that communication. So check-ins need to occur at all levels. And one of the things you talked about, what else we're going to keep doing, as a function of this, we are going to be doing a lot more formalized check-ins. None of this annual performance review business with 24 pages of who knows what, because we have to write it in one afternoon and we can't remember what we did all year. I am absolutely committed to developing a culture where we are constantly checking in with people. And I don't care if it's written, I don't care if it's verbal. From a systems perspective, we need to have some kind of a repository of documentation, once a year, but something short and sweet. But I want to be able to walk those floors and have my people walk those floors, and everybody knows everybody's names. They know something about the person. And oh, by the way, they're aware of the degree to which they're doing well in their job. And they are aware of what they can do to help that person improve where they need to, or be recognized where it's appropriate. So that check-in culture is just huge. And I certainly didn't start it. I heard about it, years ago, and always wanted to go to a company that was willing. Hey, I know you've been doing this for 25 years, but I'd like to throw away everything you're doing and start something different. That works for you, doesn't it? And I was allowed to do that here, and I'm really proud of working for a company that let me come in and do things differently and suggest different things. And it makes you not be afraid to fall down. So there's something to be said about that. And I really give credit to our senior leadership here for those things. And that helps refuel me.
Yeah, it's the same traits and same type of leadership which has gotten you through this crisis.
100%.
The ability to be agile, take risks, calculate risks, and learn from them, move forward. I just want to ask you a quick question, because I was speaking to a CTO this morning that said to me that they're really struggling with the communication of their warehouse employees and their drivers, actually. So I was wondering if you had any advice on, because they're not in the office, right? So they're on the road, they're driving the truck, they're in the warehouse. What works for you in terms of connecting?
That's a tough one. So two very distinctly different populations,
yes.
Drivers and warehouse folks. The warehouse folks, you do have the benefit of being able to call them into a break room for 15 minutes, don't even sit down, have a stand-up meeting, socially distanced, of course, and give them top line, hey, here's what's going on this week. Here's what we're trying to do. Who's got questions? Make it two-way, one thing. So you've got a captive audience, you can get them together and top line, quick dialogue, and make it a two-way dialogue. That would be my comments for warehouse folks. And then don't let them see you just for that moment in the day. They've got to see you. There's just comfort in seeing you, even if you don't say anything. Just go walk the warehouses and pick up scraps of paper, move something around, ask somebody something. And then when it comes to drivers, drivers are tough because they even come in at all crazy hours of the night. And so it's hard to even find them or see them. Now with us, we have the ability to do texting and messaging. So I think I would go digital and at least have that kind of a platform. You can do something as old school as have a communication box where they can leave handwritten notes that somebody can gather and provide answers. So you can have a way to collect questions and provide answers. There's usually a supervisor at a warehouse 24 hours a day. That person has got to make sure that they are not just sitting in their office the whole time. Before the driver goes on their route, maybe you walk the pre-route vehicle inspection. Mm-hmm. Maybe you walk around the truck with your guy or your gal, and you say, hey, are you ready for today? Any customers you're concerned about? How's it going?
Well, that's worried. It could be quite isolating, couldn't it? I think that's the worry. It could be quite isolating. They may not even communicate with an employee.
Absolutely.
Come in, pick up the load, leave. That's it. So you got to think about those people that are not on a desk, as you just said, John, and on LinkedIn. Those are people that I worry about. Even members of my team that are at home on their own and that may not see anyone at all. I worry about how do we make sure we have regular checks.
And let me share with you my what I've been doing with the folks at home, because some folks at home enjoy being at home. Some folks at home find it very frustrating because they're not set up right. They don't have like you. Look, you've got a completely beautiful setup there, complete with piano. Love that.
Obviously, you know that's fake, right? Everyone keeps messaging me after every LinkedIn live. They're like, lovely piano. I'm like, it's a green screen. It's a very good green screen. But it's a green screen.
Very good. But our folks at home, a lot of them don't have that, and they've got the kids screaming, they've got the dogs barking, and so for them, they'd rather be here. So everybody has their own way they're dealing with this, or they're not dealing with it. So what I espouse is that you get really good at goal setting. So if there's one competency that we're all going to, or should be, getting better at as a function of this crisis, it's the art of goal setting. And then there's another half to goal setting, and it should come as no surprise, but it's checking up on those goals. Get yourself a cadence around how are you setting goals. Like, for example, I have a recruiter who's absolutely fabulous, but there's no recruiting to do at the moment. So I have her doing a bunch of other project work, which is critical. And I've learned a whole lot about her skill sets, which is lovely. And she's on a schedule now where she's working at home 2 days a week. It used to be 5 days a week, and we've switched it up. But we have daily check-ins, and we have a 10 a.m. daily check-in conversation. And if it can't happen because one of our schedules, we just move it to later in the day or earlier in the day. But we have our connection time, and it's her opportunity to report back to me, let me know what she needs from me, and the same. And it's our little connection time. And it is absolutely not me checking up on her, and she knows that. It's about me checking in with her. And there's a very big difference there. And so it's about goal setting, aligning with goals, reaching agreement with those goals, and checking in against those goals, course correcting, and then ultimately, and here's the beautiful part of it, achieving the goals.
Before we wrap up, Milly, I feel like I could talk to you forever, but I know I have to let you go at some point. Before we wrap up, I'm going to jump into our quick fire round as well. So I'm going to ask you 5 questions, and you have no longer than 30 seconds to give us some amazing answers.
Oh, dear. Not prepared. Okay.
Are you ready? Yeah. What was the number one thing that was sort of holding you back from becoming a senior HR leader?
Probably a little bit of fear. You get to a certain point and you realize, I've known myself forever. And I probably thought, oh my goodness, am I reaching too high? Am I a fraud? Do I know what I'm doing? Can I do this? So I think fear, and what's awful is that I preach to people all day long about how to overcome that. And yet I had it in myself.
Yeah, I'm with you. I feel that same way before every podcast. the fear of like, and not so much now, but in the beginning, even with the business, before we launched the company, everyone would say, "What's stopping you?" And it always was fear.
Mm-hmm.
Fear of failure, fear of what my friends may think if I fail, fear of what my wife would think if I fail. Which is think so pretty common one there. Thanks. What's the best piece of business advice you've ever received?
Oh, easy. Persistence beats resistance. I got that from somebody years and years and years ago, way smarter than me. And there's something to be said about stick-to-itiveness, not quitting and not giving up. Sometimes you can just win by staying in the game.
Yeah, love that one. Love that. I'm definitely going to use that one. Love that one. What some books you'd recommend or sort of resources to use? Doesn't have to be HR related in terms of the book, and why would you recommend that?
Yeah, honestly, I read a book on Vince Lombardi, who was the Green Bay Packers football coach for years, took them to a Super Bowl win, first Super Bowl. And I've always been a Vince Lombardi fan. He is an exceptional leader. And I look back at some of the things I've learned about him. And there are things about persistence, work ethics, working hard, being committed, being driven, and not quitting. So there's a great book that his son wrote about his life. And then another one is, to be honest, and this is an old one, but Once in a Great Moon, I reread it. My father actually recommended it to me about 30 years ago, and it's Seven Habits of a Highly Successful Leader, Stephen Covey.
Yeah.
And there's a chapter in there in specifically that I'll call out called Sharpening the Saw. And that is a phenomenal concept. And it really speaks to the fact that you're never done learning. You've got to continue evolving. And it really speaks to me because I'm constantly reading about things, not necessarily business, but I try to read things that aren't necessarily business related and find the business application in them. So Sharpening the Saw, Stephen Covey, I would say that's a
great book. One of the first ones I ever read.
Yeah.
As well. And I actually did go back to it not too long ago as well. So
good.
Timeless.
Mm-hmm.
What's some internet resources you use in terms of staying up to date with current events, your own personal learning? What's some of the online resources or sort of social networks do you use to keep up to date with current events?
Harvard Business Review frequently has a lot of great articles by a lot of provoking thought leaders. So HBR is a good one. I'm on LinkedIn quite a bit. LinkedIn peers, we all post really great things that are very inspiring. So I do a lot. I look at LinkedIn a couple times a day. I think that's quite interesting. And I try to also mix it up with various podcasts. I do enjoy podcasts because I think you get a good diversity of different people that are on there. And so I try to listen to like the daily news podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
NPR Pop and Culture is really interesting because it keeps you connected with generations and genres and things that aren't necessarily exactly who you are. And I think that diversity of thought is huge.
Important.
And how do you feed it? You got to go places where you normally don't play to sort of continue to feed yourself in that. The daily zeitgeist is interesting.
Yeah, I think it's really important because you have to realize that all social media algorithms are designed to feed you more of what you want.
What you want, right?
Which unfortunately is also a negative, because I agree with what you're saying, where you want the diversity of thought, you want people to challenge your opinion, you want that, and that's something. I'm glad you made that point. That's something I discovered in podcasts.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't necessarily, because podcasts, when you go into a podcast platform, it's not feeding you more episodes about the same things you're listening. Sometimes it is, but a lot of times it's just you discovering other things on your own, which can lead you to new insights. So I think that's a very good point. It's kind of the only downfall of LinkedIn. It's a great thing, obviously, because you see more of what you want, but sometimes I like to be surprised with some new things as well. And then very last question, what's one thing about your business that you're most excited about today?
I think we have tremendous potential in rebuilding, and I think that we've got, given that we're also in food service on the other side of our house, we've got a tremendous ability to really continue to support the food chain of this country. And so I have a lot of pride in that, but I think I'm most grateful really for the leadership that we have, that has the intelligence and the guts and the courage to continue to do what we're doing, so that we can take care of these thousands of associates that work for us and help us win together.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, look, thanks so much, Milly, for joining us. It's been a real pleasure to have you on the show, and super excited to see how things now. The airlines are coming back, the hotels are reopening.
Yeah, they are.
So it's exciting times for you and the team to come out of this and thrive. And more than ever, right? If you can survive, if you can make it during the pandemic, coming out of it, well, it's just going to be very interesting to see how you grow, and especially as a company we haven't even got into that on the show, to be honest, who are acquiring multiple organizations as well. It's going to be very interesting as well. But before I wrap up, if anyone wants to connect with you, say hello, reach out, where can they connect with you? And then we'll say goodbye.
Oh, I would say LinkedIn. My contact information's on LinkedIn, and I always love hearing from people. I've made a lot of great relationships online through that vehicle. It's been terrific. So that'd be the best place.
Fantastic. Oh, no problem. Oh, that's how we met, right?
Yes.
Connect on LinkedIn. Exactly. Apart from that, if everyone on LinkedIn, thank you for joining us again. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your day, your evening, and we'll see you again soon. See you later, Milly. Bye.
Thank you.